Hi, this is Ann Ellefson with the Department of Public Instruction. I'm here today to share a recording of the consolidated application for federal title funds for the 2019-20 school year on District's Title II Part A funds. Please note that this presentation is specific to Title II Part A programming. Each year, school districts across North Dakota complete the consolidated application to apply for their federal title funds. This 1920 school year, we have recorded specific webinars for each of the title programs. And as I mentioned, this one's specific to the Title II Part A program. In this webinar, we'll provide Title II updates. We'll go through the provisions of the Title II program. We'll walk through the parts of the consolidated application that will be completed. We'll go through some resources and key issues as well as contact information. So to start with the overview of the Title II Part A program. Estimated federal allocations for Title II Part A have already been released, and they're available for districts to access in the consolidated application as well as on the department's website. We anticipate the application will be open here in early June 2019. In the past, DPI had a contact list across the Student Support and Innovation Division where every staff member had an assigned district contact. We no longer have that process in place. Rather, the department has specific content experts in each of the areas that will be able to address questions. So me specifically, I'm here to provide support with Title II Part A programming. All of the staff within the Office of Academic Support will be able to provide this technical assistance and guidance on Title II Part A programming in the consolidated application. An important note that you'll want to make note of is updates regarding Title II, in particular to allocation changes. Under ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, the Title II funding formula changed. Therefore, our North Dakota districts are noticing dramatic changes in their Title II funding. In particular, allocations are now based 20% on the census data for students living within your district boundaries and 80% based on census data of students living in poverty within your boundaries. In the past, under No Child Left Behind and prior, there was a hold harmless provision that was in place that would impact the amount of federal funds that the district had received. That removal of the hold harmless has been what has the greatest impact and shift in the distribution of funds from prior years. ESSA outlines the purpose of Title II funds to increase student achievement aligned with state standards, to improve the quality and effectiveness of your teaching staff, principals, and other school leaders, to increase the number of teachers, principals, and other school leaders who are effective in improving student academic achievement in the school, and to provide low-income and minority students with greater access to effective teachers, principals, and school leaders. You will notice that the shift in ESSA to these four priority areas is different than it was for No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind, the focus was truly on professional development, retention of teachers, and class size reduction. Although class size reduction continues to be an allowable activity, it must continue to meet one of these four purposes. All of the Title II activities were updated in ESSA as well. Outlined on these slides, as well as in the consolidated application, are the activities that are eligible for school districts to use for their Title II funds. I will not be reading them all, but know that the slide deck is available for you to review. And as I had mentioned before, the focus is really on development of staff. Class size reduction is allowable if it aligns to evidence and if the district is able to show how it's impacting the achievement of the students in the school. It is aligned for professional development that is of high quality, and it is not an exhaustive list. Rather, districts that do have other activities and ideas that do meet the intent of Title II Part A, they may carry those out as long as there's evidence-based and structures in place. It is important to note that the Title II program has supplement, not supplant requirements in place. So federal funds can only be used to supplement and not supplant those other activities that are required by state and local funds. So federal funds may not replace any services or programs that had historically been used in the past and paid out of state or local funds, or if there's anything required in state or local statute, federal funds may not be used for that purpose. A prime example would be for the student performance strategist. In state law, there's a requirement that districts provide a student performance strategist that works with at-risk students or provides instructional coaching at the elementary level. Districts cannot use Title II funds to pay for that individual, as that's a requirement out of state law and is funded through the state foundation aid formula. So when reviewing supplement, the district must determine whether or not an expenditure would create a supplanting violation. The district should consider the following questions. First, is the program or activity required under state, local, or another federal law? And if so, then that would create a supplanting violation. Or if state or local funds were used in the past year to pay for that program or activity, again, that would create a supplanting violation. Therefore, Title II federal funds would not be able to be used. In ESSA, there is flexibility that is known as transferability. Districts may transfer 100% of their Title II Part A programming towards other activities and programs that would best meet their needs. This graphic illustration shows how a district could use its Title II Part A funds to meet the intent and purpose of Title I, Title III, or Title IV Part A. There is a separate webinar series that provides further guidance on the transferability flexibility. Equitable services. Some of our school districts across North Dakota have private schools within their school district boundaries. Those public school districts need to consult with the private schools to determine whether or not they would like to receive Title II Part A services. The local school district remains in control of these services that are provided to the non-public school. There are no funds that are ever provided to the non-public school. The services are meant to meet the needs of the non-public school students and teachers, and they must be supplemental, neutral, and provided in a secular fashion. ESSA requires and helps to calculate the equitable share of services that would be provided. There is a separate webinar that provides further guidance on equitable services, but it's important to note that districts must provide meaningful consultation with private schools before making decisions about transferring funds or even what the district plans on doing with its Title II funds. The consultation must be documented, and it must describe the services that will be provided to that private school program. In general, equitable services are to be provided in a timely manner. So the district gets an allocation, and a part of those allocation funds are earmarked for services to that private school. Those services must be provided in the year in which that allocation was generated for. ESSA also requires evidence-based programming for the Title II Part A program. As you may be familiar, ESSA has 4 different tiers of evidence, ranging from strong evidence to demonstrating a rationale. All federal title funds, including Title II, must meet one of the 4 tiers of evidence to justify the return on investment for that particular program. Districts must be cognizant of this requirement and must have documentation in place on the program or initiative that they're investing in, how it meets the evidence base, and how the investment has provided a return to meet that need within that local school district. The consolidated application for federal title funds is available on the STARS program. In this next section of the webinar, we will walk through narratively the sections of STARS that you'd need to complete for the Title II Part A program. On the allocation section of the application, you'll complete the information for Title II Part A, which consists of a contact person, phone number, email, their signature authority, and so forth. All the email addresses and contact information in here, this is what we use to send Title II correspondence and updates. You'll note that your allocation and your carryover has been pre-populated, and your total available is also summed. You'll also note by your carryover and adjustments, if a red star is indicated, that means that your carryover is not final. When your carryover is final, a number would be calculated in that row, and the red star will go away. If it says 0 with a red star, it means it is not final. If it says 0 without a red star, then that does mean that your carryover for that program is actually $0 and is final. The transfer section of the consolidated application is only completed for those districts that are electing to transfer and participate in that transfer flexibility. Please note that transfer is not additional funding, but it allows districts to move or transfer its Title II funds or Title IV funds and repurpose them towards the programs and initiatives of other federal title programs. There is a separate webinar that provides further guidance on the transferability requirement. The activities section for the Title II Part A program is where you will complete your budget. As I had mentioned earlier, all Title II Part A activities have been updated in the consolidated application to align with ESSA. So new integrated activities and codes have been assigned. It will not work for school districts to reference last year's consolidated application and codes and enter them for this year. All activities have new codes and new areas in which they're identified. The general areas that you'll find in the consolidated application are professional development and training for school leaders and staff, effective teaching supports, evaluations supports, recruiting, retaining effective personnel, and also class size reduction. If you'd like to see an entire list of those integrated activities, they are available on the department's website. Next, the district will complete the Title II Part A section of the consolidated application. In this section, the district will outline its investment of Title II Part A funds, those staff that may be hired with Title II Part A funds, how the 2A funds are used to directly meet the district's needs, and how the activities meet one of the levels of evidence, level 1, 2, 3, or 4, and what that level of evidence is, what that activity is going to address or change. It is important to note that if a district is providing, let's say, a general professional development activity where the evidence might not be readily available in categories 1 through 4, the district then needs to describe its rationale on its need and how it will measure whether or not that investment has had an impact by providing that professional development. A new requirement under the Title II Part A section is also to justify the investment of funds. And in particular, districts will be required to address how the Title II Part A funding aligns to the statewide strategic vision and in particular is focusing to increase students who enter kindergarten prepared to learn, increase students that demonstrate reading proficiency, increase students who meet expected learning gains, increase the engagement of students, increase students who graduate choice ready, reduce the disparity between subgroups in North Dakota, and increase access to behavioral health services. In addition, the district will need to outline how the investment of Title II Part A funds aligns to the strategy maps that the district schools would have prepared in advanced ed. The assurances section of the consolidated application has you sign off on specific Title II Part A assurances, in particular for conducting meaningful consultation with private schools, targeting funds to the neediest schools within the district, ensuring private school participation, to provide high-quality professional development activities, and to ensure that all investments supplement and do not supplant federal title funding. There are a variety of resources that are available for you to reference for your Title II Part A consolidated application. First is the consolidated application information, where we have general guidance available as well as those integrated activities listed. Also, the Title II Part A section of the department's website has been updated and is aligned with ESSA, and there's additional information you can find there. The consolidated application help screens also provides you step-by-step information on how you might access and assist you with the STARS consolidated application process. There's also a summary of research for Title II Part A. This document is extremely helpful for those districts looking for the levels of evidence and to justify the return on investment of the Title II Part A program. I'd like to highlight the consolidated application guidance as we recently updated, and it has information on the consolidated application itself, the object codes for tracking expenditures, some general information on tracking guidance, as well as fiscal policies, and information on budget revisions. It's important to note that some of the tracking codes have been updated to better align with the ND farms. In reviewing consolidated applications, there's often general key issues that we find when we're reviewing and approving those applications or even budget revisions. First, whether or not the activities are necessary and reasonable. All costs that are charged to the federal education grants must be necessary and reasonable considering the amount of money being spent. So for each of those investments, the district must really evaluate and justify how it aligns to the application, how it aligns to the intent of the grant, and whether or not the investment is necessary and reasonable. Also, the activities for Title II Part A must be consistent with the district's application and data and needs that it has. So if the district is providing class size reduction services, it would really need to show that there is a group of students that has a higher enrollment than another grade, and it needs to be able to track how reducing that class size has made an achievement difference for the students or behavioral difference for the students over the past years of investment. Evidence base must also be in place. ESSA requires Title II investments to be spent on activities that are supported by evidence and are demonstrated to be effective. So those are those 4 tiers that are currently outlined, and if your activity does not meet one of those 4 tiers, the district must outline its processes so it will be able to justify its return on investment. Many districts use Title II funds for professional development, and it should be noted that this is an allowable activity. However, the connection does need to be made with the needs of the district. So that will need to be outlined in the consolidated application. Also, more information on who is attending, the number of people, if there's additional resources that will be shared or developed through the professional development, the dates of the event, And in particular, if it's a contract or if someone is providing that professional development, providing the narrative of those details within the activities is very important. It also should be noted that the professional development definition has been updated within ESSA. It's available on the department's website and in the Consolidated Application Guidance. The professional development must be of high quality. It must be a regular ongoing investment, and it should limit one-shot workshops that districts often participate in. Another key issue that we come across is class size reduction. So class size reduction is one of many strategies that a district might implement to address student academic needs and achievement. Districts must know that the findings and research about the effectiveness of class size reduction is varied. There are many research studies that find inconsistent information regarding the implementation. Therefore, districts must have their own processes in place to outline what their planned implementation is and what their local return on investment for that for that class size reduction investment is. Districts must also note that the class size reduction requirement must supplement and not supplant those other funds. So in the example that I provided earlier with the student performance strategist, it would not be allowable to use those federal funds to meet a requirement that is in place for with state law. Additionally, let's say that a district provides 2 classroom teachers at each grade level, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. 2 teachers are provided. It would not be allowable to fund one of those teachers out of class size reduction funds because the district has already committed to 2 teachers per grade level based on the student enrollment. In that situation, the district would need to demonstrate how one of the grade levels maybe has more students or higher needs students, therefore was providing 3 sets of classrooms instead of 2 like the other grade levels. Those districts that are using Title II funds for class size reduction should be prepared to provide this information upon the application request and review. Should you have questions while you're working on your Title II Part A consolidated application, know that the Office of Academic Support staff are glad to assist you with this. Our contact information is on the screen. You can reach myself, Brenda Ermintrout, Amanda Peterson, Matt Sherbinsky, or Jane Gratz, and we'll gladly assist you with your Title II Part A questions. Thank you and have a good day.